viewers, hello and welcome to our pre-budget series of Perspective. I'm Tina Jha. As we move closer to the Budget 2024 announcement on the 23rd of July, we'll be talking about the defence sector today. Over the past 4 years, India's defence budget has steadily increased from 4.71 lakh crore rupees in 2020 to 5.94 lakh crore rupees in 2023. In the interim budget presented in February this year, the defence allocation surpassed 6 lakh crore rupees, constituting a little over 13% of the total union budget. Reflecting a commitment to bolster defence capabilities amidst growing security challenges, India's defence spending trajectory has been on an upward trend. The increasing spending patterns have largely been driven by factors like modernisation, border tensions, and initiatives aimed at enhancing self-reliance in defence manufacturing. In continuation of the trend, experts anticipate a significant increase in the defence budget in the first budget of the Modi 3.0 government. We have two distinguished guests to discuss this further. I'm pleased to welcome on the program Major General Ashwini Kumar Sivach, retired. He's a defence expert. Thank you, sir, for your time and welcome to this edition of Perspective. Also pleased to welcome Mr. Amit Koshish, ex-financial advisor, Acquisition, Ministry of Defence, Government of India. Thank you, sir, for your time as well. Welcome to Sunset TV. Let me, in fact,
my pleasure.
Let me begin the program today with you, Mr. Koshish. The first words from you. What we've been seeing is an upward trajectory in terms of increase in allocation to the defence sector. And in the interim budget, we saw the government even surpassing the 6 lakh crore rupees mark. What are your expectations this time around? It's the first budget of the Modi 3.0 government, and largely in its approach, what we have seen this government do is continuity is something that we see as the central theme. Would you expect that in terms of the defence sector allocation as well?
Yeah, so see the regular budget which is going to be presented on July 23rd, I don't really see any possibility of a substantial increase in the allocation, because going by the past experience, the interim budget, there's hardly much of a difference between the interim budget and the regular budget. But yes, there has been an upward trajectory in allocation. The question, however, is whether this amount is, the allocation has been adequate. And if you look at 2 or 3 parameters which are generally applied to assess whether the allocation is adequate, it leaves much to be desired. For example, if you look at China, India faces a greater threat from China than China does from India. But India's defense allocation is less than 1/3 of China's. If you look at the gap between the projection made by the services and the allocation, there is a gap between the two. It was about 23,000 crores in 2010-11. It went up to about more than 1 lakh crore 10 years later. Even last year, that is in 23-24, it was about 30,000 crores. Whereas if you go by the Finance Commission report, the gap would have been more than 3 lakh crores. So the short point I'm making is that there is a certain amount of mismatch between what the armed forces really require and what the allocations are, which is not to take anything away from the fact that there is an increasing trend of allocation. But as I said, it leaves much to be desired.
Okay. So we'll come to what have been the key spending areas and what are the sectors that have seen a lot of attention over the past few years in the wake of the growing security threats. General Sivach, your thoughts on the fact that these 4 years wherein we've seen an increase in the allocation for the defense sector, there has been a lot of change globally in terms of the geopolitical scenario. At our own doorstep, we've seen how the border standoff has forced us to go back and ensure that we are self-reliant in at least this sector as well. So looking at that pattern, and this has also been the period where we've been hit by the pandemic, which has left the economy in a very bad state globally. So all of these factors, taking them into account, but at the same time also seeing an increased allocation for the defense sector, what would you expect this government in its third term to do?
Yeah, Tina, I suppose the government has tried its best. In fact, from 2021, if you see it, you yourself have mentioned, so 4.71 lakh crore. Now the budget which was presented in February was about 6.2 lakh crore. The point is, this is 13% of the defense budget. And as far as the defense is concerned, you see the point which has to be understood is that initially our focus used to be to import maximum weapon. And that is where the problem was, that we were almost importing 70 to 80% weapon from outside. And that cost a lot of money. Now what we have done is Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India. We are now trying to make weapons ourselves. And wherever we can't make weapons ourselves, we are now trying to transfer that technology and manufacture in India itself. For case in example is M777 ultralight howitzer, which we got from US. Now the Mahindra Defense is making in India itself. K9 Vajra, which we got air defense system, mechanized, we got it from South Korea, L&T is making. So to cut it this, one can say with a lot of confidence that the focus is on Atmanirbhar and Make in India concept. That will make a difference. Certainly one can say that the money which is allotted is not enough, because the requirement is far more. The reason is simple, because we have two enemies on our borders. One is China on our northern border and Pakistan on the western border. Very rightly you brought the geopolitical situation as today after Russia-Ukraine war and also Israel-Hamas war. The whole world is divided. The whole world is now spending a lot of money on defense. So therefore there is a requirement of more money. But what this government has done is, this government has done 3-4 things very correctly. One is that defense corridor which it has built, one in north, one in south, north in UP and south in Tamil Nadu, where the number of hub sort of companies have come in dependent on each other, manufacturing a defense item. AK-203 is coming, Ameti, likewise HAL in the southern portion. That has made a difference. Second thing, what has made a difference is that majority of weapons to be produced in India, only few items which we have to buy from outside. In fact, by 2027, the self-sufficiency will be almost 70%. So that's a great thing. Second, which motto which this government has taken is Make in India, Make for World. That's again paying off to this government, that items or you could say weapons like BrahMos missile, joint protection between India and Russia is being now basically exported to Philippines. The Philippines have bought it, Malaysia want to buy, Indonesia want, then we have Tejas Mark 1 Alpha, Akash missile, Nag missile, Swati radar. So it is endless now. So number of weapon and equipment which we now exporting to other countries increasing. That is a concept of Make in India, Make for World. I think that will pay.
You're right.
But certainly what happened, I just want to say, certainly one thing is there, that this defense budget is approximately 1.9% of GDP. In case we have to spend more money on modernization, we need almost about 2.5% of GDP. Then only you will able to achieve that modernization which we are now thinking of doing it in next 5 to 7 years. Tina.
Sure. So we've come closer to 2%, but now going to 2.5%, 3% of the GDP. Of course, it's going to take time. But Mr. Koshish, going back to 2014, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi assumed charge, to now when we are speaking, we have seen how consistent efforts have been made to strengthen the Indian arms industry, to ensure that there is a transformation in India's image from being the world's largest importer of arms to becoming a significant exporter of defense equipment. Towards that aspect, there have been several initiatives, and General Siraj mentioned the two major ones, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India. If I look in terms of the modernization of the arms industry, what have been the major highlights for you during this period of time? How do you expect the government to take that forward from 2024 onwards?
Well, there is no question that, there has been a spurt in local manufacturing. There's a lot of stuff that is being made in the country, and which is a very good thing. But I'll add two footnotes here. One, that it is not really established that the cost of local production is always less than the cost of import. In fact, there are old reports of the CMAG where they found that in some cases the cost of local production, at least in the short run, is higher than the cost of import, which is not to say that it's not a good thing to manufacture locally. So it's a good thing, certainly. The problem, however, is that a lot of big ticket items are being manufactured in India with the help of technology, which is transferred from abroad by the major manufacturers. Now that's a weak area, and if we are to actually become self-reliant and self-sufficient in defense production, then we need to focus on developing these technologies which go into making of the major platforms. Mm-hmm. The second part is that it's difficult to sustain the local industry. If they were to sell only to the local market, in the local market, because there is only one buyer, that is the MOD, and to some extent, of course, the paramilitary forces. But breaking into the export market is also not all that easy. I mean, as you are aware, we did figure a year or two in the list of the 25 major exporters of arms, but our share in the global export was 0.2%. Now, and we are not there anymore in the latest count. And if you look at the largest exporter, of course, USA is the largest exporter, accounts for about 42% of the global exports, followed by Russia and France, which account for only 11% each. And China, despite all the all the claims it has of developing technologies and captive markets it has in Pakistan and other countries, its share in the global export market is only 5.8%. So there is a challenge there, and if the defense industry of the country has to come up, then it has to have strategies and game plan to break into this market, which is a very tightly held market, which has not been so easy so far. Again, this is not to take away anything from the achievements which are there for everyone to see, but I'm only flagging the issues which need to be tackled.
Okay. General Siwaj, as a defense expert, what would you expect the government to do going forth to reinforce the faith, the trust in the indigenous capability of India? For a long time, we've imported arms. Now, the fact that a lot of our companies, and especially the private sector, is playing a key role in exporting it to several countries. So, to ensure that trust in Indian arms, Indian defense production as well.
Absolutely correct. Tina, there I durustai. I think we were taking a very easy course of action that whatever item which we can't manufacture, we even did not try. We thought that let us import it. And that's why we were importing almost 70 to 80% of weapons. But once we have started manufacturing ourselves, we have realized that initially the cost may be slightly more. But as we will develop the technology in time to come, you will find the cost coming down, and also we will able to export. So the point which is coming is this government policy of 700 to 800 items which have been put on a negative import list is creditable. In the sense, those items we cannot import, we have to manufacture in India itself. And we have able to manufacture. Who could have thought 15 years back that the India can also make an aircraft carrier like Vikrant? We are now building ships, we are building submarines, we are building now aircraft, Tejas Mark 1 Alpha, which will have a G414 engine, which transfer of technology coming from USA, and HAL will be making it. So I suppose the mindset has changed. The strategic ramification, geopolitical compulsion, and economic capabilities have changed the whole concept. If you think big, you will become big. I will say 2-3 more issues. Remember that after what has happened with China, that in 2020, that the type of infrastructure development which has taken place in Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh is creditable. Roads have come up, your bridges have come up, tunnels have come up, your airfields have been renovated in Neoma as well as DBO. Today you find that in Arunachal Pradesh, that up till line of actual control, you are connected by road. So this has changed, and what it has done as far as on the ground, the economic activity which it has built up from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh, that's again a major achievement, that those villagers which used to go back because there were hardly any economic activity taking place very close to LSE, now stay there. So overall, when you develop your defense industry, you are helping the economy of the country. And I suppose in time to come, when our defense industry will mature enough, you will find our items, our equipment, our weapons being exported to other countries, which has already started. Today we are exporting almost 35,000 crore. Our target is another 2-3 years, it should be 1 lakh crore. Because today we are the 5th largest economy, and sure in another 3-4 years, we are going to become a 3rd largest economy. So I can say with a lot of pride that lot of thinking has gone of this way, that you should produce maximum weapon yourself and only buy those items which you cannot produce today, and that also transfer of technology manufactured in India, and you have capability to influence. You remember, as far as USA is concerned, it never used to give you a weapon system, and we were dependent on Russia. We were over dependent on Russia, no doubt. As of today, US is ready to give the best of the weapon, and with transfer of technology, that's how it has given you G414 engine. So I suppose that changing of this complete geo-economy and geopolitics of the world, India has come in a long way. India now develop its own weapon system. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, Make for World is going to be a game changer, Tina, in time to come.
Okay, Mr. Koshish, as we speak about the kind of changes that we've seen in terms of defense production, defense exports, what's commendable is that India is today exporting to about 85 countries, about 100 items. When we talk of imports and exports, what comes to mind, and what reform, the major reform that we've seen across sectors is ease of doing business. As someone who's been part of the government also, how would you see the ease of doing business actually taking shape within the defense sector and the strategic sector particularly, because it would be more challenging? And would you expect the government to open up the sector further when we want Make in India to be a huge success, when we want our defense exports to shoot up, we've set ambitious targets for ourselves? How will ease of doing business shape up?
Well, I think the sector is quite open in the sense that, FDI is allowed up to 74% on automatic route and even up to 100% with the government approval. And there have been a lot of things that have been done. For example, notification of the list of items which require industrial license. The industrial licensing norms have been eased and so on. So a lot of work has been done. There is no denying that. But a lot of work also needs to be done. A former army chief, in fact, said about a year or two back that we need a revolution in bureaucratic affairs. And he did talk about the procedures being extremely cumbersome. Now, DAP 2020, which has been there for 4 years, it does require, a lot of simplification. So, procedurally, I think we need to look at the possibility of simplifying the processes further. We also need two more important things which have a bearing on how defense production and modernization and defense exports will take shape in future. One is defense planning. Now, defense planning has left much to be desired. DAP 2020 does talk of 10 years integrated capability development plan, 5 years plans and all that. But, the efforts made in the last 15-20 years that I am aware of have not really been commensurate with the kind of results which were expected. Now, unless you have a plan to work to, it is difficult to then ensure that, you remain on track. So planning is something, defense planning is something, comprehensive defense planning is something which requires attention. And the second part is, again, going by the experience of countries like USA and France, there is a need, and in fact, the Ministry of Defense itself recognized and realized this need sometime in 2015 or 16 when late Manohar Parrikar was the defense minister, and he set up a committee to recommend the modality of setting up a defense capability acquisition organization, which could, which could cover the entire gamut of activities right from the time the operational requirements are identified by the armed forces, and these are to be then converted into qualitative requirements till the acquisition and post-acquisition maintenance of equipment, etc.
Right.
We don't have that kind of composite organization. So these two things, to my mind, are extremely important. Apart from, of course, the question of higher allocation, but the higher allocation in itself is not going to solve the problem unless we also have these other structural changes in place to handle that.
Absolutely. And especially
allocation.
when we compare ourselves to these global powers like the US, China, Russia, because in terms of defense spending, perhaps we are only the fourth largest country in the world behind these three countries that I just named. What we can strive for, although General Sivach, is that even though we can't increase the defense budget radically, because there are other things and other requirements that also need to be taken care of, what we can strive for is greater efficiency in these allocation. And to that regard, a lot of experts have spoken about how, with the limited budget still, what we need to do is we need to align the defense budget with the modern military needs, and in which we have to ensure that while we are in a border standoff with China, a commendable part of a significant part of our budget is spent in building border infrastructure. Also, emergency procurement of new equipment is something we've seen over the last few years. Going forth, it's going to be important for the government to look at this aspect, that you modernize your defense in terms with their needs, and in which technology is going to be a key enabler.
Absolutely, Tina, no doubt about it. You have hit the nail on the head. There are two things. One is, of course, you need money. If you need to modernize your defense forces, possibly you need money which should be about 2.5% of GDP if the economy can allow. But the point, what is more important, is the efficiency and effectiveness of your industrial base within the country, which is very, very important. Now, the deep technology which is to be developed. Now, unless you don't spend money on R&D, no private company or a startup has got that mechanism of spending money on R&D, because you can't develop a new technology unless you spend some money on that. And therefore, 1 lakh crore which has been now allocated by this government, I think it is a very thoughtful act, because in time to come, in case the startups and private partners have to be part of a public sector, then you need that money to be given for the R&D. The another thing is basically emerging critical technology. We have to develop that also. We have to develop artificial intelligence. We have to also spend money on cyber warfare, space warfare. These are the new technology which we are coming. I think we are going in a long way to adopt this new technology so that we can become more effective. But all said and done, I can only say this government is on the right track to that extent that it has now given focus on the defense production, and they have said that maximum weapon we must produce ourselves. The thing which was in past thought that we have no capability of manufacturing state-of-art weapon has been broken. As on today, we are capable of producing the best of the weapon system, and that's why it is making a tremendous impact. And I suppose in time to come, you will find it that more weapons will be manufactured in India, and you will also able to give it to the other countries and earn a lot of foreign exchange. And that is what is going to be a game changer, Tina.
Of course, without emphasis on R&D, technological advancements, we cannot expect the kind of modernization that we've envisioned for the country. Towards, realizing all of these goals that Prime Minister Modi mentions towards Vision 2047, Mr. Koshish, how do you look at the emphasis in the times to come, and especially with this being the first budget of the Modi 3.0? The President, in her joint address to the Parliament last month, said you're going to see historical changes. To that aspect, perhaps certain announcements which would be a big gain for the R&D budget in the defense sector, towards fostering innovation, towards also promoting collaboration between private and public players. That going forward for the defense sector is extremely crucial. We're largely seeing that the key players are the PSUs, but we need the private players to come in big.
No, I agree. I think in the interim budget also this announcement was made that a corpus of 1 lakh crore will be set up for promoting R&D by the private sector. Now, I think the R&D, defense R&D is key to defense production and modernization and everything desirable insofar as defense forces are concerned. And therefore, if the finance minister were to focus only on one issue, I would imagine it has to be R&D. And by involving private sector, only you can promote R&D in defense, because the DRDO by itself cannot take the entire responsibility. It has to actually come out, get out of the areas which are not core areas of defense R&D, for example, research in food and clothing and things like this, which are best done by the private sector. So a lot of work that is being done by DRDO has to be shed to the private sector, and private sector has to play a greater role. But that is only one thing that will take the sector forward. But there are other things, like for example, as I mentioned earlier, we have to simplify the processes. We have to put in place a capability acquisition organization. We have to take care of defense planning. So all these things will have to move in tandem. And I don't know if it is within the remit of the finance minister, but if I were the finance minister, I'll certainly have a look at all these things and at least encourage the Ministry of Defense to take steps to set all these things right.
Sure. So we've seen strategic recalibration over the past decade. We would hope the government to take that forward. There's no doubt that the expenditure has seen an upward trend that is expected to continue. But as our experts rightly pointed out, there will be going forward, what is going to be the need is increased focus on R&D. Indigenization is also very, very crucial, and especially aligning the needs, the modern military needs. That is something that will also have to be taken care of. So let's see what the finance minister has to offer for the defense sector. For that, we'll have to wait till the 23rd of July, and that's when we'll go back to these experts and understand from them about how many of their expectations have been fulfilled and what still remain in the times to come that we'll have to look at. But for now, we'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again to both our guests for joining me on this edition of Perspective, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.